everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I am the Rusty Panda, and I am here for you. Get a little closer to the mic. Hello, everybody. I am proud to present Galvos the Green here, the man, the myth, the legend, the Nova of it all. Every question you've ever had answered by this man, and you didn't even know you needed to know the answer. That's how great Galvos the Green is.
Oh, god damn it, Bullet.
Forgot to turn that off. That's fine. Hi, Snarky Shark. um, okay, so today we're going to talk about a lot of things. And it's going to be incredibly fascinating. Not that the others have not been fascinating. These are just going to be. He's less green than I imagined, but it's okay, I guess. His shirt is like an olive, I'd say.
And there's some green in this, but
Yeah, exactly. How is his levels? Just curious. How are his levels? Not is his levels.
how is my levels?
Galvos the white guy didn't have the same ring to it. uh, he's quiet as always. Really? Are you serious? I'll turn him up.
I can move the mic a little closer to my mouth too.
Is that better? His
Test, test. Is that better?
and the chat stops. Okay, better. Okay, cool. So I have it started on Nova, because that's what his friends like to call him, because he knows so much about so many things. So for all of you who don't know what Nova is, it was a science television show on PBS. And essentially, it's basically interviews scientists doing research in subject areas covered and occasionally includes footage of particular discovery. So it's funny because I'm doing an interview about you, who they call Nova. Isn't that funny? I think that's funny.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah. So what got you into knowing all you can know forever and ever and always? I know that's a loaded question, but what made you interested in science?
Um, I mean, I would have to say I just always had a knack for it growing up. Like it was very intuitive. Certain things just made sense, and they were right, and so I don't know. I just kind of stuck with it and wanted to learn more. I really, most of my science education was me researching things versus like school teaching me things. Um, so I kind of had myself on like a fast track program without really trying, I guess. But
Okay.
I just love how the universe works. It's amazing, and every part of it is science. I mean, every part of it.
Right. So specifically, you had mentioned space. And so let's start there and then get more refined.
Okay.
Um, so no, we're not doing that kind of space. We're doing outer space. Mathematics. Okay, how do you want me to proceed? Void between celestial bodies. It's not
Yeah,
helping.
that's
That's
outer
it?
space.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. So, commonly shortened to space. Well, okay, I'm not Nova, okay? But okay, so tell me what you know about space. Not what you know, but what fascinates you about space in particular.
Um, the infinite possibilities, uh, the fact that anything could be out there. Um, little bummed I was born too early to be on the part of finding it, but uh, I mean, literally anything's possible out there, and that's what's amazing about it. It's also one of the most humbling things in the world to try to truly comprehend it. Um, how small we truly are, and all that. It it brings you down to earth. It's a kick in the ass, you know.
So, in particular, you're talking about bringing us down to Earth and how small we are. And we talk about being stardust. Um, and what about that makes you feel down to earth? Like,
We're all part of the cycle. Um, I mean, everything from the stellar explosion that made the materials that are in our bodies to um, the explosion of our sun whenever that goes down, it's all part of the cycle of matter. And I mean, I think that's probably what's so humbling about it.
okay. So regarding, I'm seeing like a lot of words on here that are highlighted: Big Bang and plasma between galaxies. Um, where do you want to go regarding space? I know we see dark matter and dark energy. Do you want to start with that? Do you want to go into the Big Bang or
um, we can go with dark matter and dark energy,
okay?
both of which I think are minor rounding errors that don't actually exist. I think they're um, so the best way to think about gravity is a bed sheet pulled taut, and you're placing marbles on it, and there's always going to be a slight wrinkle between any two marbles, regardless of where they are. There'll be a slight divot between those two. Everything, gravity's infinite, so everything touches everything. Um, and I think that's the math they're not taking into account. Um, and that's where these weird numbers come from. And more recent scientific discoveries have kind of vindicated what I thought. But it's a controversial thought on dark matter because a lot of people think it's what's making the universe expand and everything like that. But um, there's more to it than that.
So with dark matter, for anyone who's not sure what it is, I could read the Wikipedia article or I could just ask you. So this is probably going to be a lot of asking you and then referring to the Wikipedia article. But if you want to explain to the people at home what exactly is dark matter.
Basically, it's gravity we can't see. There's mass out there. According to the math, there's mass out there that we cannot see, but it's the only way to account for a large amount of missing material. Um, the problem with dark matter is, depending on which equations they use, you reach a wall of it at some point that where everything is dark matter. Um, so that's kind of one of its failings. But basically, the idea is that it's this invisible mass out there in the universe pulling everything apart.
Okay. And so you feel like there's something that's not invisible. You feel like something is there.
I yeah, I feel like they had to make up a placeholder. Dark matter to me was always more of like an X in the equation.
Okay.
Um, it wasn't a thing so much as something we didn't understand about how the universe works fundamentally. So
Okay. So then we talk about dark matter, and then we're also talking about black holes. Um, in what sense do you? In what sense do black holes have to do with dark matter?
um, it's it's a form of matter we can't see for the first thing, but it's also another possible explanation for dark matter. Um, that there are large numbers of rogue black holes out there that we can't see. Um, there's a bunch of different theories. The coolest thing about a black hole is that it stops time itself. I mean, that's why I've always been interested in them, is that once you hit a point, it's so heavy it stops time. And that's just real hard to wrap your head around, which is fun.
So if time stops, do you stop, or are you in a area in which time stops?
We have no idea.
What is your theory?
I think that you are shot out the other end. I think, well, and this is out there. This
Yeah.
is not
Okay, I'm
any
ready.
approved science. I believe that on the other end, on the other side of a black hole, is a universe forming from the matter that it has absorbed. Um, uh, each black hole is basically the shadow of a big bang in our universe. Um, so they're both the end and beginning of all things.
I like that. Um, so okay, so this animated simulation, you could see this, yeah?
Yeah,
So is this not accurate, or is it accurate concept of a black hole?
it's an accurate concept of how we can see a black hole. The only way we can see them is when they pass in front of something and bend the light around it. We've learned other ways. There's Hawking radiation, so a black hole sucks in everything as fast as it can, um, but it generates heat in the process. And we've learned to look for that heat to find black holes, um, which is kind of a neat thing.
Yeah. So okay, so we've kind of talked about your black hole, and I don't want to be like black hole theory, but your theory on black holes,
Yeah,
and your ideas of dark matter. What about what in space do you feel we got right? So you're saying that you don't think dark matter is correct, but what do you feel we did get right in the matters of
I
space?
mean, everything else with the standard model seems pretty solid. Uh, it breaks down on quantum scales, so there's a gap there. But I think as far as outer space goes, we understand a lot of the mechanics because of how limited we are. We have to use those mechanics. If we had spaceships that could just zip around, we wouldn't have to worry about gravity or orbiting planets or any of that. But because we don't, we have to know the mechanics of how, at the very least, our solar system works and the physics within it. So I feel like by and large, they've got it right and most of it figured out. I just think that when it comes to extreme space, uh, so we'll call it that things are a little different.
So let's talk Star Trek then.
Okay.
Is it which one? Next Generation is the one you like?
I like a lot of them, but yeah, Next Generation was my go-to.
Not Deep Space Nine, the Next Generation.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. So, what specifically about Star Trek opened? Did Star Trek open your eyes to space? Did space open your eyes to Star Trek? Like, what? Just did they kind of go hand in hand?
I would say my love of space led me to Star Trek, and then Star Trek enhanced my love of space and science.
And what specifically about Star Trek do you think is realistic?
I mean, I think a lot of the basic science is realistic. I think they do a lot of fringe stuff that's a little out there. I think, unfortunately, I don't think faster than light travel is possible.
Okay.
Um, so that part I think is fictional. Um, I, but that's just a me thing. That's not a. I mean,
No, we're talking about you, so it's a you thing. That's why I'm interested about it.
I just don't think. I think the laws of physics don't allow us to go faster than light, and if we did, time would have a serious problem. Um, and you don't want time to get messed up.
Right. So,
But
if I remember correctly, you believe that we can go forward in time but not back. Is that correct?
yes, you can jump forward but not back. That's pretty much where the science on it is now. That if you move fast enough, if you were to go the speed of light to Pluto and back, what would happen for you in a day would come out to like 121 days on Earth.
Yeah, I saw something on it wasn't a meme, it was just like a science fact that said if you were in space for 5 years and you were like 15 years old and all your friends were 15 years old, and then you go into space with the speed of light, and then you come back and you're still you're 20, But all your friends are 65 now.
Yeah, you'd have to travel fast enough and far enough,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the theory.
That's a crazy theory. Not that it's
It
crazy. I mean, like that's an awesome theory.
the faster you go, the more time you go through. I mean, time is just a dimension of space, so the faster you're moving, the faster you're moving through time. Now, it's a little different, like if your friend were talking about just going to the space station and
Mm-hmm.
staying there,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a time difference depending on how much gravity you're experiencing. So you actually, minutely more, but you weigh more uh, at a low elevation than you do at a high elevation,
Okay.
because the body itself, whatever's creating the gravity, is pulling on you more the closer you are to it.
Hmm. Okay, so let's the International Space Station. You had referenced it. Um, fully crewed 7, currently aboard 7. So it's not it's a big station, but there's not a lot of people on it.
Yeah, and when you look at the picture, most of that is not human space. Like there's the middle part there,
Let me see
it's
if there's
mostly,
inside of it. Okay.
yeah,
So there's not a lot of room to breathe really.
nope, not a lot of room to move around or anything.
Interesting. So, okay. Okay. So yeah. Um what is so fascinating about the ISS?
Uh, the coolest thing about the ISS was that we had to come together with multiple countries to build it, and it was a foot in the right direction for space exploration being an international thing. Um, Not any one person or any one country would monopolize space. Space would be for everyone, um, which is kind of a romantic and silly concept, but it it was the first step towards that. Now, unfortunately, it's become less that over time,
Okay.
but I mean, it's being decommissioned soon. They're developing a tug to pull it out of the sky so it lands in the right place.
Oh wow. Okay. And why?
They're done with it. I mean, they've done what they can. They have plans for a new station, but mostly the problem is that the Chinese have pulled out and have their own space station. The Russians have pulled out for the most. I mean, they're still sending people, but they're pulling out at a specific time. Um, so it's just kind of like us, Canada, uh, and that's, well, the UK to some extent, but that's pretty much it. And it's kind of not in the spirit of it. Plus, it's expensive to maintain.
Right.
Um, you could build something smaller that would serve the same function, but it's going to be the American space station instead of the International Space Station.
Now, it says the ISS modular allows it to be removed from existing sculpture structure. So, diagram structure of an International Space Station after installation of the solar arrays as of 2022. So, if they did an installation, then how are they wanting to pull it out of space?
Well, they're going to bring it down I mean, it'll be a while.
Okay.
I think I read 2031 was the plan.
Okay. Hi, Ruby.
This is Ruby.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so 2031, you say?
I think that's what it was. I don't remember exactly.
No, that's fine. Let's see if they have all these different sections of it that all have names.
Yep.
Oh my god, I'm not going to be able to get to the end of this. And they were talking about SpaceX, and I really want to talk about SpaceX for a minute, but let me see. Um, sightings from Earth, debris and threats, life aboard operations, onboard structure, construction purpose, end of mission. According to the treaty, They're legally responsible for modules that have launched. The plan was seen in 2010. The preferred plan was to use a slightly modified Progress spacecraft to deorbit the ISS. Um, let's see. Boeing's contract with NASA as prime contractor 2020, the end of 2028. Oh yeah, the extend the operation. The act of 2018 was to extend the operations of the ISS to 2030,
Okay.
and then NASA announced the planned date of January 2031 to deorbit the ISS
Okay.
into the
That's
South Pacific Ocean.
yep. That's what I thought.
Crazy. I didn't doubt you. I just wanted to know more.
Well, and I doubted myself. I wasn't 100% sure on that date.
Yeah, no, you pretty much got it. So tell me about SpaceX.
Um, Kind of cool that a private company is making so much uh, progress in the way of space technology. I think its founder's a little crazy, but I think um, the company itself is what we need. It's if we can't have shared international space, it might as well get chopped up by corporations just like the planet.
Oh, that's dark and sad. Yeah.
but but I mean, it gets us there.
Right.
It gets us there. We have financial reasons to want to go to space now. Um, these are important things. I mean, we'll see how the whole Mars saga plays out.
Right. The
Um,
colonization of Mars.
yeah, yeah. I think his plan there is probably a little ambitious, but you pretty much have to colonize it. A trip back is really difficult. To have the fuel to make it there and then make it back is that's a lot. Space flight's incredibly costly.
Huh.
You need more fuel to lift more fuel, to lift more fuel, to lift more fuel
Right.
over and over until you get rockets that are huge. So they're probably going to have to build a Mars rocket in space, probably relative to the ISS, and then have it go and come back and then deorbit from it. But it won't be something that actually lands on Mars or Earth. Uh,
Okay.
and then they would have landers off of it, uh, which is kind of what they did with the moon landing, but in a much smaller way.
Okay. So we talked a little about SpaceX and space. Now let's kind of veer towards the Big Bang so we can go into evolution. So let's start at the Big Bang and then kind of skip forward to like the Stone Age. Like you can go as fast as you want between the two of them.
I mean, the Big Bang is an interesting theory. I think it's currently probably the most solid theory we have. Um, but as far as it, it was a cosmic event where everything came into existence at once and exploded. Basically, it's a giant. The universe is really just a giant explosion that we live in the middle of, um, and that's moving at such a slow speed. We're like not noticing the fact that it's an explosion. Um, but as far as what gave rise to Earth and everything like that, that gets a little more complicated. I mean, Earth was much smaller at one point and had a nearby sister planet called Theia that collided with it, um, creating a much more, uh, not much larger, but a larger body that spun off the moon. Um, and then, as far as the conditions that made life possible on Earth, we're finding out now it's much simpler than we used to think that uh, complex amino acids can be created just by running water over essentially bubbled obsidian, which happens around volcanoes all the time, and water falls from the sky. So these are things that would eventually lead to life. Um,
Wow.
but life on Earth and the geologic history of it I don't know. It's crazy to think. Like at one point, it's believed all the plants were purple. Um, the color of the sky was completely different because
Mm.
uh, they were metabolizing carbon dioxide, but they were absorbing a different wavelength of light and had cells very similar to chlorophyll, but not chlorophyll exactly. Um, and then there was the great oxygenation where uh, there was enough algae. There it is. Basically, there was enough algae and stuff alive in the oceans to produce enough oxygen that it actually ended up killing off a bunch of the early life because the early life wasn't about oxygen. Um, and so, I mean, it has a peak as you see. Um, but yeah, it was a interesting time and led to uh, the ability for there to be more complex life because there was more oxygen for it to run off of.
Fascinating.
And oxygen was a much more uh, efficient energy user, or well, I don't know if efficient, but more power generated in biology. So it just took off from there.
That's crazy. So, okay, so life took off from this specific I thought it would say oxygenated, but it's oxidation.
Yeah, because that's how we find it is a line of rust in the rock. Um, Basically, the microbes that lived at the time were metabolizing oxygen using something similar to using iron because it's efficient. It's what we do. But many of them died all at once. And so that's how we know it happened. And it's bright red because they absorbed too much oxygen and died, and it left them, lying at the bottom of the ocean at the time, which it's estimated most of the Earth was probably ocean around that time.
Right.
Um, so,
Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about biomarkers and rocks that were found. Chemical fossils interpreted as fossilized membrane lipids. Um, I'm trying to see the biomarker samples have since been shown to have contaminated, and so the results are no longer accepted. So that's interesting. But thus, it can additionally serve as an indicator of oxygen in the atmosphere. So they've been shown to be contaminated, I'm assuming, because of current events, or.
yeah, we don't have access to a lot of pristine rock from that point in time. There's a place off the coast of Ireland where we can access rock from incredibly long ago. And there's a place in Australia where you can access rock from incredibly long times ago. But because of plate tectonics, the rest of it's all underneath us, way, way underneath us,
Wow.
or melted.
Or melted, right? So okay, so what kind of what happens next that fascinates you? Because I know I'm not going to ask you like this theory of life, whatever, but just what after that fascinates you.
I mean, all of it, but um, in particular, I have an interest in ancient human history,
Okay.
prehistory even. Um, so, like, not primarily from the age of mammals, like after the dinosaurs.
Okay.
Um,
Do we know what
and
era
then
that is, or?
uh, I probably should. I don't off the top of my head.
That's fine. So let's see if prehistory. Yes, prehistory. There we go. So here we are.
Um, yeah, and it's also known as pre-literary history, but basically the first stone tools and things like that started to appear. Um, it it it's interesting to me because there was a time when we lived on this planet with a bunch of other species of hominid. So there was Neanderthals, Denisovans, and then the Hobbit, whatever population it originated from. Um, the Hobbit's a famous fossil, not like
The
hobbits
Hobbit.
from yeah.
Right, right.
Um, but uh, I'm very interested in that, how we came out on top, but how we also have genes from all of these other things that existed at the time.
Hmm.
Um, that part's really, I mean, we're an amalgam of all the human types that there were. We're mostly one type, but there's genes from all the others too. And that's just crazy to think about.
That there's all these
Um,
different things that we've evolved from, multiple different. Well, what? There's four, right?
yeah.
Yeah, there's four different.
Well, I mean, and like it says here, so the first stone tools it shows are from 3.3 million years ago. Now, writing didn't happen until 5,000 years ago. So that's a huge gap.
Right. Yeah.
And we weren't even human when we were making stone tools. That was before Homo sapiens. It was before Homo erectus, I believe. I mean, it's very far back. Um, but I like early human history because of primarily it explains a lot about the creation of civilization and the purposes behind it. And there's a lot of other weird aspects of it. But there's a prehistoric site called Göbekli Tepe, um, and it's like the first religious site ever. This is one particular one that fascinates me, so I'm going into it.
No, that's fine. What is the name?
Uh, if you get into search and type GOB,
Uh,
oh, oh yeah, there it
Gobek
is.
Tepe.
You
Yep.
can click the link if you want.
There we go.
So it was a large religious complex that was created before we developed writing, before we developed farming, before ranching. We're talking hunters and gatherers built this giant stone site for some reason. Um, it's believed to be religious. There's a lot of pictograms. There's a lot of animals that aren't from the area necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, but and then a lot of like iconography. It's in Turkey, but the idea that you would have had to have had hundreds upon hundreds of people hunting and gathering just to support the people who were doing the building and carving and all of that. And
Right.
that there was no farming, and yet people were organized enough to build it. And I think they said it's like 15, uh, I think it's 15,000 years old.
Okay,
I'm not 100%.
let's find out.
8,000, 9,500 to 8,000 BCE. So before we developed pottery,
Wow.
we built this.
Hmm. Let's see. So pre-pottery discovered in 1963. Interesting. Western Asia. Pre-pottery. Damn, you're smart. Okay, so and yeah, the war hunter gatherers who supplemented their diet. Man, I don't even know. You are Nova. You just know all this. Okay, so we've gone into now history. Now let's talk. You were talking about Stone Age, so that's a little further down the line, yeah? Or is this considered Stone
This
Age?
this is considered Stone Age, roughly. Yeah.
Okay. So what's about it said Stone Age and transition were the words you used. So what is the transition in which you're referring to?
Well, I mean, we transitioned to the Bronze Age and transitioned to the Iron Age and so on and so forth.
So your favorite part of history particularly is this one in the Stone Age.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Because the people surviving was a lot harder. there weren't large groups of people. I mean, well, clearly there were if something like Göbekli Tepe exists, but there aren't signs that there were large groups of people elsewhere in the world. Um, cities were mostly villages. There wasn't really cities. Um, for the most part, there were some big exceptions, but um, so life was much more difficult, and you had your tribe, and that was it, kind of thing. Um, and so it formed who we are.
Yeah.
Um, it's a kind of a morbid concept, but um, prey animals evolve defenses that work best against their predator animal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have hands, which work best at taking out other people.
Right.
Um, so, kind of a weird concept, but the idea is that we evolved with ourselves as our main competition.
That's fascinating. I like that a lot. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, you're my tribe, so stay close. Um, you and the cats were a tribe. All right. So we talked about space. We talked about Stone Age. Let's talk about games revolving around those. So, for starters, what about Kerbal Space Program? So, and the reason I picked this one is because I loved watching you play it because A, it frustrated the shit out of you, but B, it also, from the way you made it sound, made it pretty accurate as far as certain levels of space flight.
Yeah, I feel like anyone who says spaceflight is easy needs to play Kerbal Space Program. It really illustrates how difficult it is to get to space and then much less orbit a planet. Like that takes so much more. The level of technology required. Um, it's it its physics are as close to you know what is real as they can make it. There aren't like Lagrange points or anything
Right.
compli- complicated, uh, but yeah, it's fun.
Jebediah.
Jebediah and Valentina.
Yep. So it's talking about development and stuff, which I don't really care about. But yeah, it's got really good ratings if anyone's ever interested in this game. Hashtag not sponsored, but I wanted to bring it up because it has to do with one of the space games that you like, along with games that are like, what's the flying game you used to play? That was
Oh, Elite Dangerous.
Elite Dangerous. So that one was really hard, yeah? I mean, that was a flight simulator, wasn't it?
In a lot of ways, yeah, it was combat was challenging on a controller.
Right, right. So I know it's a massive multiplayer. So I know that you had talked about there being different space things that they kind of got right. If there were space flight at the speed of light, right?
Yeah.
So what drove you to this game?
Um, honestly, there's a series of games called oh, it's escaping me now. But essentially, you can be a space trucker, and I like the idea of running cargo. Oddly enough, there's just something about doing the trading, being a space trucker that I really enjoyed. That was pretty much mostly what I did in Elite. Um,
What's the game you're playing with Kane currently? Isn't aren't you doing the same thing?
yeah, that game is called Star Citizen,
If I
and that one's pretty controversial
And why is it controversial?
because a lot of people think it's a money grab
Okay.
because it's been in development forever.
Right.
Um,
Since 2012?
yes,
Wow. Yeah, that's 11 years old for an in development game.
And technically, game production started in 2010. So, highly
Wow.
criticized.
Now, what you were talking about running cargo. So that's, I mean, you always talked about being able to run drug rings here. Oh, is that right? Is that what you and Kane talk about?
Yeah, you can run drugs in Star Citizen.
That's so funny. I love that.
I mean, you can run drugs in Elite Dangerous too.
I love how they try to make it as realistic as possible.
You can do, I mean, like in Elite Dangerous, there's a purpose for everyone. You get money from exploring things no one's seen before. You get money from trading. You get money from, and eventually Star Citizen will be that way too. If what they promised comes to be, we'll see.
Right. Now that brings me to No Man's Sky.
Which
So,
is my favorite video game.
exactly. So, I mean, I didn't know that. Tell me more. Um, so like specifically about No Man's Sky, what is it that has drawn you to it and made it your favorite?
Um, well, the the size of everything, it does a good job of making you feel small.
Yeah.
Um, which I really like.
Hi, Gun.
Um, it's probably that and the procedural generation. I think the fact that you can have thousands of variations on something and have it be a little bit different each place you go is really cool. Now, some people argue that there's not enough variation and um, every planet looks the same, and I can see that from a wide lens that's a ways back, but there's already so much in the game. Like there's only so much you can ask. They pulled it out of the gutter and turned it into pure gold.
Yeah, they started initial release in 2016. That's 1.0, and then 2023 4.2 and Scepter. Interceptor. Yeah, and all for free too, the updates, which is
Yep,
crazy. Now they're talking about beyond and further updates. So No Man's Sky next. Um,
that's already
yeah,
out.
that's out. Let me see what they're talking about. Cross platform, they did that. Apple announced that they've worked with Hello Games to bring the title to Mac OS and iPad.
Oh, that would be rough.
I know. That would be so different. Oh, and the VR, is that this version? Hello Games announced PlayStation VR optimized port of the game in June, like VR.
Yeah, VR optimized
That
for
would
the
be
PlayStation VR 2 headset.
insane.
It already is VR.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
With other
crazy.
with other with other peripherals, it's VR.
No way. You couldn't pay me to look at that. That would make you want to talk about feeling small. That would just
Yeah.
oof. Oof oof oof. Um so we talked about space games. Now I'll kind of talk about more of sim games because I feel like if I'm watching you play a game, it's No Man's Sky or RimWorld. Um, so what brings you to RimWorld?
Uh, RimWorld. Well, Dwarf Fortress brought me to RimWorld.
Okay. Do you want me to
Um,
start with Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld?
you don't really have to start with Dwarf Fortress.
Okay.
Um, basically, they're story generators, and you will lose. And I think that's my favorite part is that you since winning is well, it's kind of achievable in RimWorld. If you get off the planet, you win the game.
Right.
Whatever. Um, but the journey is really where the fun is and the crazy things that happen. I mean, you lose a whole colony to rabid squirrels, like, and sure, it sucks you lost the game, but it's also freaking hilarious. It makes for a really great story later.
Right.
Um, and so I loved that aspect of it. Um,
coats made of baby skins.
Oh yeah, yeah, that too. Um, it was the only game to ever make me say, "Do you have any idea how many babies it takes to make a duster?"
Oh my god.
Because RimWorld will allow you to do that now.
Yeah, now they just made it so that it's available to do that for kids, yeah?
Yeah, you can. Kids are now a part of the game.
Oh my gosh. And you always used to say that kids weren't a part of the game for a reason, and now they're in there.
Well, once they introduced kids, it got banned in Australia, so there was a reason.
Yeah.
um, but that was only briefly, and but yeah, I mean it's you can do so much twisted stuff. I always figured they'd leave the kids out of it.
That's now you play that on Steam, yeah?
Yes,
So you
story generation. Yeah, there's where it says.
okay, yeah. So the Dwarf Fortress then says 2006 is
Hmm.
when it started, but it December 2022 is when it officially came out, yeah?
On Steam.
On Steam.
It's been basically a complete game for a decade,
Yeah, 2006, yeah.
which is when I started playing it. Um, it's it's
Just for anyone who
so
wants to know,
in
these are the
depth.
fucking graphics.
Not anymore.
These were the fucking graphics.
They can be the graphics if you so choose. I played it that way because there's so much going on that it needed low overhead. But now they actually have like graphics.
Let's see if I can find them.
But
Um, yeah, it's
it's a
made by
crazy
two
game.
guys, right?
Yeah, well, more now, but
Because I saw that these were the two guys that were in early development. Yeah, I remember reading about this specifically on Wikipedia, and I don't know why. Like this exact early development piece, um, regarding the guy who was working on a programming language, and his older brother was like, "Let's turn this into a game," and then it was turned into a game, right?
yeah.
Yeah, first fantasy projects in high school.
And it was originally designed to be an adventure game, a randomly generated adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they added the Dwarf Fortress mode later.
Okay.
So early on, it was about exploring this randomly generated world. Um, yeah, its reception wasn't great because it's incredibly complex.
Right. But the reception though, 93 out of 100, 10 out of 10 on IGN. The Guardian gave it 5 stars.
Yeah, but a lot of players didn't feel that way.
Got it.
I mean, it's as far as a good game. I've never had it glitch, not even once. Um, like it's solid.
That's epic. Well, I know that you like to play those games, so I definitely wanted to bring them up. Let's make a hard turn, not too hard turn though. We were talking about rocks and such, and so you and I got into discussion about Missouri in general and the geology. What got you into geology, Galvos?
Both of my parents are geologists, so I had the misfortune of learning all about it over the course of my entire life.
That's crazy. I think it's fortunate. I think that that's fascinating. But I also feel like I'd feel not enough in that department. Like if I didn't learn, I feel like if my parents were like mathematicians and I sucked at math, like that would make me feel really crappy. So I feel like you came out on the other end really good with all your knowledge of rocks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most of it was stuff they taught me. So,
Hey, Sai.
but what you don't know, you ask about.
Right,
That's
exactly. Exactly. So tell me what about geology? What's your whistle?
I mean, I like. Well, I most of the geology I really like is the primordial geology that like formed the earth. But It also is cool that you can tell the history of given places based on what's in the ground. Um, like Missouri was a shallow ocean, shallow tropical ocean uh, during most of the time the dinosaurs were around. Um, and so you don't find dinosaur fossils, you find ocean fossils here, um, and not complex ocean fossils. Yeah, there's the Ozark Mountains, which are kind of cool. Uh, they're older than the Appalachian Mountains, which are older than the Rocky Mountains. So geologically, uh, the Ozark Mountains are incredibly old. That's
uh,
pretty good.
yeah. Okay, so the Ozark Mountains are super old. Regarding what about the the rivers and stuff, you would tell me that the what is it? The rivers are more than the something of the ocean or coastline or something like that.
Missouri, if you count rivers and lakes, Missouri has more coastline than any other state. Um,
I don't care about
or at
doing that.
least that's what I've been told. I haven't done the math on it.
Let me see. Economy, transportation, law, government, education, culture, etymology and pronunciation, early history. Now, see, yeah, rivers and valleys, habitation since 9000 BCE.
Yep. The Mississippian culture was here, which is another cool part of history. They were the mound builders. They lived on these like tower mounds, but um, they're pretty interesting. Uh, that's their coverage area. So we're kind of off on, like, if you look at where Cahokia is, that's where St. Louis is, up a little bit. Yeah, there you
Oh, Cahokia starts with a C. My bad. I was looking for a K. Okay.
go. But there's tons of mounds right there. And there was a city that was believed to be great with a population greater than 20,000 people at one point in time, um, in that location, and
Wow.
living with the floods and all that as part of their natural life.
Interesting. So, okay, let's go back to um, Cahokia was the center of the regional trading network that reached to the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico.
And actually, even further than that, we're finding out.
So, St. Louis was one time known as Mound City. Mississippian culture left mounds to the middle Mississippi and Ohio River valleys, extending to the southeast and upper river. Um, West
And then it
Bank.
goes
Go ahead.
into, well, it just goes into how St. Louis is a French city because of uh, French traders and missionaries. Um, yeah, European settlers, mostly ethnic French Canadians.
I'm interested in geography, though, or not geography, geology. And so basically, all we have here is just this one.
Well, so the cool thing about Missouri's geology is most of it's karst, which is a type of limestone.
Okay.
Um, it's a type of limestone that forms caves very easily, which means we have many, many, many caves.
Spell car.
Karst.
Cool.
And so there's tons of sinkholes, tons of caves, all over Missouri, and signs of caves and things like that. There's a cave you can drive through here. There's a sinkhole you can go see, um, all within this one state. So um, we don't have the biggest caves, we don't have the longest caves, but we have a ton of caves.
There's what is it? Devil's Cave, which is in Colombia, which you go down in it and it's freezing.
Yeah.
It's so cold.
Yep. Devil's Cave's a little weird. It's actually colder than most underground caves.
Is it like Devil's Ice or hold on. It's like
It's probably not going to
Devil's
be.
Icebox Cave in
Yeah.
Missouri. Yep, I've been here and it is so cold. longest caves in the state of Missouri and is one of the caves with the highest number of species in the state. The cave is currently closed to protect the endangered Indiana bat. The only known nature home of the species are... Okay. The cave was originally given Devil's Icebox by people living in the area. The word icebox as the name probably came from a very cold air that leave from the cave all year. The temperature, 56 degrees all year round. It has also had a temperature of 13 degrees. So, yeah. I just wanted to bring that up because we were talking about caves in Missouri, and that one is crazy.
It's good that you got to see it since you can't now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few pictures. Okay, so rocks, water, and history of Missouri. Let's go into... Let's talk about flora, right? So, Missouri passed a law recently that allowed recreational marijuana. So, you and I have had many talks about this. And I'm curious as far as what your knowledge is regarding the history of marijuana, because it's becoming legal everywhere,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious where the fuck it came from out of nowhere.
So it didn't come from anywhere. I mean, tons of people been smoking it on both sides of the aisle. I mean, it's fairly bipartisan issue. Um, passes most places that it comes up for vote. Um, but it became illegal in the 30s, I believe. They wanted to, imagine this, keep the Mexicans out.
Okay.
Um, it, not much has changed, but it essentially they thought it would help keep the Mexicans out because of stereotypes. So of course it didn't work because they were basing it off of stereotypes.
Okay.
Um, but what they did was instead of making it illegal, they made it so that you had to have a tax stamp for each certain number of ounces.
Okay.
And they would only issue 16 of these tax stamps. And
Okay.
so that was it. And they would go for many, many thousands of dollars. Um, and so it became illegal, I believe, around that time. It might have been much earlier.
Yeah, 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act
Yeah.
was passed, and the prohibition production of hemp in addition to cannabis. Interesting. Okay. So, I was looking at that map too about legality, and I mean, a lot of places are illegal
Yeah, in the
all over the
world.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, so what the fuck happened?
Western civilization imposed their values on the rest of the world.
I see. Okay.
I mean, that's the honest truth of it. That and there are other predominating cultures where it's also prohibited. Uh,
Okay.
think of it as like the religion in the area doesn't allow it, kind of thing.
Okay. I understand. Um, so talk about you believe that there's no indica or sativa, right? Like there's basically
I
just one overlord of plant.
No, I believe that there are. It's just that I believe that we don't really know. We don't have a good uh, handle on what is what until we get more genetic studies and it's more regulated.
Okay, so you feel like it's not regulated at this time.
It's pretty regulated, but not enough. When they put the little sticker on the bag about how much chemical it has in it, I believe the sticker on the bag. But when they say indica sativa hybrid, I doesn't matter to me
Right.
it,
Okay.
because it's not, you know, I don't know.
All right, so look at this real quick. So this is the evidence of the first
Yeah.
Jerzangal Cemetery.
About 5,500 years ago. There's a
So yeah, what does it say? 3500 BC.
yeah, so about 5,500 years ago.
As a ritual, which it makes sense. I know that there's other drugs that are used for a ritual that are clearly illegal.
Scroll up real quick, just a little
Sure,
bit,
sure, sure, sure.
or down a little more. Okay, right there. Okay, hemp seeds were discovered by archaeologists, and critics suggest early ceremonial practices like eating by the Scythians. Okay, so the Scythians come about again.
Interesting.
They're one of my favorite cultures.
Okay, tell me why.
Um, they divided their culture based on skill, not gender. Um, they were allowed to have female warriors. They were allowed to be male gatherers and caretakers. They were excellent goldsmiths, um, probably excellent metalsmiths in general, but known primarily for their goldsmithing. Um, they were the source of the legend for Amazonian women
Okay.
because they were generally taller. Their culture got co opted and continued on as the Mongolian culture, like the uh, Attila the Hun and all that.
Right.
But yeah, that's where they were kind of found.
Now, are
I
these the
just,
ones that chopped off their boobs so they could have one?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yes, it's told that the women would remove one breast so they could wear armor over most of their chest and still be able to nurse a child, which is kind of metal as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Warfare. Let's see if it mentions it here. Hide armor. Oh, a large number of women participated in battle. Right. Equestrian skills.
Yeah, they were renowned horse archers, which is the tradition that carried on into the Mongolian side of the Russian steppes because they're from the Russian steppe.
Okay, yeah, risen of Greek stories of Amazons.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, more about um, history and basis. Let's bring it to the present. Let's get to know a little more about Galvos. We've been hiding behind this cloak of knowledge. Let's bring it on
Cloak of
to. You
knowledge.
like that? I thought that was clever. Um, bring it up on to things like coffee or sushi or onions or hummus. So let's start with our favorite, which is sushi. Um, how old were you when you first started eating sushi, and what drove you to it?
Um, I I was actually pretty old the first time I had sushi. It was at my friend's girlfriend's birthday party, and we went to a sushi restaurant, and I tried pretty much everything.
Yeah,
Um, I was
you were that
probably
guy.
15 or 16 at the time. Yeah, I was that guy. And I discovered I liked most types of sushi and didn't like octopus. And uh, but yeah, that was probably the start of it. And then once Izukaya Ren popped up that close, um, it just became like a regular thing.
So okay, so you're Mosh Kane. Thank you for the subscription. Um, so with you don't like octopus, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as far as your favorite types of sushi, what's your go to?
Um, I like anything with fried soft shell crab in it
Okay.
a lot. So like the spider rolls. Um, I really like eel. Um,
Okay.
In fact, I think eel is like the one thing I was missing out on my whole life of from sushi.
I agree.
Um, that eel in particular was where I really like it. But so anything with eel in it or soft shell crab, like I said, I like fried rolls just because they're fried and
Yeah.
crunchy.
Oh my gosh. Fried Philadelphia roll. The reason we met was because of a fried Philadelphia roll.
Well, and even I mean, like the shrimp tempura roll, the crispness of a fried shrimp inside the roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fancy. It's not sushi in any real traditional sense, but it's darn good food.
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know how we met, it was at a sushi bar, and I went back because I wanted the fried Philadelphia roll. And he was coming in that night as he did because it was his place. And we started talking. And I had mentioned that I was bipolar. And that's when I got his eye contact. And he talked to me in his sweet, sultry voice that y'all are hearing right now. And when I went to leave, he had asked me if I had a phone, not a phone number, but a phone. And we were inseparable ever since. So sushi really brings us together. We have sushi pillows, we have sushi ornaments, thanks to Mosh Kane and Faraday. We have a whole bunch of sushi, and when we go out, it's like and we're able to. We want to make sure that we get sushi. So,
Yeah,
um, it's kind of a big deal. But a fried Philadelphia roll, I I go gaga over.
you came back for the fried Philadelphia roll and left with a Galvos.
Exactly. 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 All right. So I know you love sushi. I could equally say that I know that you love onions.
Yes, I do.
Um, so tell me more about why, when I said foods that you love, you didn't say, a cobbler or a souffle or what you said, onion. So tell me why you love onions.
I love onions because you can put them in practically everything and make it better.
Okay.
I mean, there's different types of onions for different situations, and you know, they add a lot of flavor to a dish. They go well with a lot of flavors. I mean, you can have onions with meat, fish, doesn't doesn't matter. Veggies, they work with pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Although a lot of people don't like them, which I don't understand.
So out of these kind of onions, which one would you go for?
The Vidalia onions are my favorite.
That is also my favorite. Um, because they're sweet, right?
Yep, they're typically very white, very sweet. Um, yeah,
Let me see. So the history of the onion species is not well documented. Oh, hello. Let's go back. Records of an onion spans Western and Eastern Asia. So, domestically likely took place in West or Central Asia. Onions have been variously described as having originated in Iran, Western Pakistan, and Central Asia. Back to the Bronze Age, or far back as 5000 BC. Oh, but also for the bulb's durability and storage and transport. I didn't
yep,
think about that. So
they
it's not
stay
like an
good.
apple that bruises easily.
Yep, and they stay good for a long time.
Iraq.
I really got to turn those sound alerts off. Hi,
They
Iraq. That's crazy. Yeah. So, the so sautéing onions, jar of pickled onions. I still think that's disgusting. I don't know if I'd eat a pickled onion.
I I like pickled onions.
I know you like the purple ones too, red or purple onions.
Yes, I like red onion in certain contexts because it adds more of a kick. And just like I like shallots for certain situations because they're a little more subtle.
Right. Right. And I like the more subtle onions. I mean, you eat raw onions more often than not. Which is fine. I'm not putting you down about it. I'm just saying I know people who can eat onions like an apple, and I feel like there are times where you can literally eat a bunch of white onions that we have left over from whatever, and you'll just eat them raw.
Yeah. I white onion I will eat raw. Most white onions.
Yeah. Now the red onions, you'll eat raw a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Large size of an onion cell makes them useful for microscopy. These cells from the epidermis of a red onions are naturally pigmented. They're used sometimes in hair oil. Interesting. Science education to teach the use of a microscope for observing cell structure.
Yep.
Onions are toxic to dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and many other animals. I did not know they were toxic to cats.
Yeah, they are.
Not that I've been feeding our cats onions. That just makes me a little more freaked out that I don't want to have them lick my fingers or whatever after eating something. Onion skins be boiled to make a brown orange dye. Interesting. Causes stress caused by diabetes. Reducing stress caused by diabetes. Concluded that onion juice reduces oxidative stress and can be recommended by patients dealing with bone problems like osteoporosis. Huh. It's only 9% carbs, but that's only 2% carbohydrates, so that's still a lot of carbs.
And that's average. I'm sure that the like Vidalia onions have far more sugar in them.
Right. All right, so let's get off onions for a minute and let's go into, I don't know, you said this just to piss me off. Let's go into hummus. So, tell me about hummus.
I grew up on it, so I love it. Uh, it was something my mom would make. Um, and I mean, we would have the store bought stuff too, but my
Right.
mom would also make hummus. Um, so I've just grew up on it, and that's the reason I love it. I know you are not a fan.
I'm not. That texture is unfriendly. That is an unfriendly texture, and I stand by that. Usually store bought too. Yeah, I mean, I can barely do guacamole. Like, it's the same texture to me.
And texture is my problem with octopus. That's the
It keeps coming
yeah.
back to octopus. We're gonna, you know what? Let's look up octopus.
No, we don't have to look up
No, we're
octopus.
doing it right now because I don't want to talk about hummus anymore. So, octopus. What would be
Yeah.
Ika fried? No, that's squid. Octopus sushi. Octopus raw. Octopus food. Octopus is food. Here we go. Oh my god. So you eat fried calamari though.
Oh yeah, I love calamari.
Hi Chan. Um Hummus is awesome, guac is gross. See, I don't know. I hate both really. I can do a little guacamole, but it has to have a lot of sour cream to it. But yeah, calamari taco. Calamari is delicious.
Taco is octopus in Japanese.
Oh, okay. I was like, why are we talking about tacos all of a sudden? Calamari is disgusting. You know what, Sai? That's fine. You can give all your calamari to me, and I'll eat it. I'll even eat the parts that have the most squid feeling. Look at that. Oh my god, delicious.
No. I can't.
Delicious.
Ugh. Lightly boiled was how I had it.
No, see, this is gross. I wouldn't eat this. But as a, like here, grilled, armed, and served, that's delicious.
Nope.
And then let's see, blanched octopus. That's usually like I'll eat. I don't know. I think fried calamari is delicious, and I stand by that. but I know that you don't. So we're talking about hummus that I don't like and octopus that you don't like, and that's fine. Together, we can eat the other one's food and we can move along.
Yep.
Let's talk about coffee.
I live on coffee.
You really do. You really, 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 really do.
I mean, technically, I only have the equivalent of 3 cups a day. Um, so I'm not super hooked, but
When we're at your parents', it's like 5 cups back to back to back.
yeah, that's a little different.
It's true. It's not every day, but it's still, I mean, you will drink some coffee. And again, not judging you for it. You just
No,
you'll
no.
you'll drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I can drink a very large amount of coffee.
Right. So what's your tell the people what your coffee of choice is, and if you like it iced or hot, or if you like it beaned or ground, or tell us how you
I
like your coffee.
I like plain hot black coffee. Typically, darker the better. Um, but
Drip brewed, percolated, French pressed.
I really loved. I had a French press for a little while, and I really loved how that turned out. That was another really good way to do coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Homemade cold brews were something that I've had that were mixed success.
Yeah.
Um, but just regular black coffee is my go-to. Nothing fancy.
Nothing fancy. Now, when you do want something fancy, what's your go-to?
Uh, for coffee stuff, it's either uh, the coffee shake thing from Tropical Smoothie,
Oh my god, the mocha madness.
the Mocha Madness, or
I want tropical smoothie. Okay.
a Java chip Frappuccino from Starbucks.
Yeah.
Because I love chocolate covered coffee beans, and if you grind those up and throw them in coffee, that just sounds really good.
We try our best not to get chocolate covered coffee beans in this household because they don't last more than a night. And I mean, we could have like this much and it then not one night. And it's a night too. We shouldn't be eating coffee beans, but like who the fuck cares because they're deliciously chocolate covered. Did you choke, Kane? Did you almost choke on one? Is that why? Or I need to know this story.
If you eat too many, pardon.
If you eat too many what?
No, well, it's they have caffeine in them, so you can seriously overdose if you eat too many.
I'm glad we shared them then.
Yeah.
We can OD together. Um okay, so
Ugh, instant coffee.
they are way stronger than just drinking coffee. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So let me see. 9th century Ethiopian first observed the coffee plant, seeing his flock energized by chewing the plant. The legend does not appear before 1671. A professor of Oriental languages and author of one of these first printed treatises devoted to coffee, indicating the story is apocryphal. What does that mean? Apocryphal. I don't know. Another legend attributes the discovery of coffee to Omar starving after being exiled from Mocha, found berries. After attempting to chew and roast them, he boiled them, which yielded a liquid that revitalized and sustained him.
No, I would not, Iraq, to answer your question.
What's cat poop coffee?
There's Kopi Luwak, yeah.
Okay, now
Basically,
I need to know.
I think a civet cat has to. I don't know what a specific type of cat
Oh my god, ew!
has to eat the beans and then poop them out. Yeah, fermented as they pass through the civet's intestines.
Yeah, I mean, we were just about to talk about fucking cats, E-Rock, and now I'm like all grossed out. A doubtful. Okay. Thank you, Sai. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you just literally heard my cat meow. That's or I heard Crystal. Is she?
She's right here by me. They're all in here. I can see every one of them.
So we have three cats. I don't want to be on this page anymore. Okay, we have three cats. um, Crystal, Keiko, and Ruby, and the other one. Um, and essentially, Ruby. Let's see. What would you say? Various types of cats. What would you say? Crystal is more lynxy. She's got the ears and a fine, like a tail that's very long
And a long nose.
and a long nose, right? So she's kind of Siamese, but not Siamese,
Yeah, her body type is somewhat Siamese, whereas Ruby's is more typical house cat.
right? And then I feel like this is more of a Ruby Keiko mix.
Yeah, I mean, Keiko's a barn cat. That's what Keiko's dad looked like.
Think about the color change though. If this was a color change, I feel like it would be Ruby.
Yep,
And then Keiko is more of a floofer. That's a kitten Keiko.
but that does look almost exactly like her as a kitten.
Right. So that's a kitten Keiko. So that'll give you a concept of what our cats look like. You love hate your two cats. See, our cats have been putting us through the ringer, but I love them very much. They are our children. So you had like a million cats growing up.
Uh, Over time, yeah, never more than three at a time.
Right. So what drew your family to cats, or what became your love of cats?
I really have no idea how it started. Um, uh, we got one cat. Um, let's see. His name was Maxwell. We got him. It was the first cat we got. And then uh, we picked up two sisters. Oh no, that's right. We picked up the sisters first. So there was Frida and Cleo, and Frida looked like Keiko with Ruby's build.
Okay.
Um, and Frida died very young. Um, Not sure what got her, uh, but she was just died in her sleep, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, Cleo lived forever. We had her for a really long time. And then we got Maxwell, a male cat, which is one of the many reasons I don't ever want to get a male cat.
Right.
Um, but yeah, then it was, oh man, there's a lot of cats.
So, okay, I know there's been a lot of them. I've heard of Cleo before. So, what are the like top 3 cats that have made your list that aren't our cats?
Uh, Cleo, Biscuit, and Chewy.
Okay, yeah, so I recognize all those names. I've met Biscuit. Biscuit was adorable. Tell me about Biscuit.
Biscuit was my sister's cat.
Mhm.
My sister was a gymnast. Um, she taught gymnastics for a little while. And while she was teaching gymnastics in the parking lot, this little kitten came up to her and we brought it home and we said we were going to get it fixed up and then give it away. And then we never gave it away. Um, and she just became a little blob.
I'm trying to find a floof. This is a pretty good floof.
Yeah.
It should just be all black.
Yep. Black and floofy.
Yep.
She was a good cat, but had horrible health issues because she was, I guess, inbred street cat. I'm not sure, but her teeth, they had to remove a bunch of teeth, all sorts of stuff like that.
And then you said there was Cleo, there was Biscuit, and then there was
Mm, Chewy.
Chewy. So what about Chewy?
Chewy was a diva.
Yeah.
Um, yes, very much so. And he hated my sister. Um, but yeah, Chewy was the Elton John of cats. Um, Very fabulous, but wanted to be left alone um, in his fabulousness. He wanted to just bask in his own fabulousness, and that was it. I could pet him. My parents could kind of pet him. Hannah, if she got too close, he would yowl and make horrible noises. He once peed in her shoe. Um, like vindictive shit is what he would do to her.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and but he was a great cat because he started off. We named him Chewy because he had kind of a smushed in face. We thought he was going to be a smush face cat, um, and he looked like Chewbacca a little bit. But then he grew up into a perfectly normal cat, looking nothing like Chewbacca, so it didn't really fit. Other than that, he was furry and large.
Right, right. Okay, so and then tell us how Keiko came to be.
Keiko, I went to an Oktoberfest camping trip with a bunch of friends on a farm owned by one of those friends. And it was basically like we toured 5 wineries, a brewery, and then came back to hang out. But we were just hanging out, having hot dogs or whatever. And she kept following me around. I had petted her and her mom. Um, and a couple of her sisters, because I mean it was a bunch of kittens, so of course you're gonna pet them. Uh, but she followed me around and kept falling over on my shoes, like not letting me move. And the people who own the farm were watching, and they were like, "Well, that cat just picked you. Looks like you're getting a cat." And I'm like, "We can't afford a cat. I can't do a cat." And they're like, "Well, you're getting one." And I was drunk, so I was like, "Okay, cool." And yeah, that's how Keiko started. And then she's been with me ever since. And that was, shoot,
2011.
yeah, 2011.
Yeah. You said she's the most expensive free cat you ever had.
Yeah, well, she was a barn cat. So she wasn't fixed. She wasn't vaccinated. She had ear mites. There were a couple other issues. So when we got her, we took her to the vet to get her vaccinated. And then all this other stuff came up. It ended up being $860.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just to get her into shape for, um,
Living.
yeah, yeah.
um, so you love cats probably as much as you love the next thing, which is peanuts. And I would like to not pick a horse or a TV series. There we go. Um, so tell me, you've always had peanuts in your house back at your parents' house, right?
Yep.
And so is it your dad that always got into them? I mean, your parents always have mixed nuts, like always, but
It's mostly my dad's fault, yeah. I would say he's the nut guy
yeah. And then with that, you love peanut butter.
very much.
And so I'd say you're a nut for peanut butter, but I don't want to make that pun, even though I already did.
Yep, too late.
Too late. So you like what kind of peanut butter?
I prefer crunchy peanut butter.
Okay. So I could definitely poll the audience and say which do you like better, crunchy or creamy? I used to live by creamy. I used to live by it. Jif, reduced fat creamy. Yes, just peanut butter. Reduced fat creamy, and then I got introduced to the world of crunchy peanut butter. Yeah, super crunchy peanut butter, and that's where we live right now. And that department is super crunchy peanut butter.
And I mean, the reason I love it is it's so nutrient rich. Uh, oh, Info recently moved to crunchy. Um, but yeah, it's nutrient rich, high in protein. It's a really good staple thing.
Yeah, so Galvos will be like, I'll be like, honey, did you eat dinner? And then, because we'd be on our own for like dinner nights and be like, I had a peanut butter wrap And I'm like, that's not dinner. He's like, but it has all the essential vitamins and proteins that I need for the night. And I'm like, what are you even saying? You had a tortilla with peanut butter on it. But that's what Galvos eats.
I eat a lot more than that.
That's what Galvos prefers. He's right though. Listen, I agree. I'm not shaming him for it. It's just, yeah, eat 2 of those as a snack. I get it as a snack. See, as a fucking snack. That's what he said. No, not a peanut butter sandwich. We're not talking about between thick bread or any of that stuff. We're talking about on a flour tortilla.
Yeah, with a little bit of creamed honey.
Oh yeah, better on whole grain bread, of course, of course. Um, but yeah, creamed honey is. Oh my god, it's so good. Why is creamed honey so good? Okay, flour tortilla is like 300 calories. It can work. I
Yeah.
know. Stop backing him up, audience. This was about peanut butter, not. Okay, so let's talk crab cakes.
Oh yeah.
So you had mentioned this, and that one really took me by surprise. I did start it. I usually do start it, and then I get pissy about how it ends. That's how I live, Sai. Crab cake. So I like crab cakes to a degree. I have to be. uh, I have to agree to a certain point, but I have had more crappy crab cakes than I've ever had good ones.
Yeah, it's not easy to find a good one.
What were those crappy crab cakes that we had in Maryland? Do you remember those?
Yeah, that was at a wedding.
No, no. That was at my grandma's. We were out with.
Oh, with Peter and them.
Yeah, yeah, we went to go visit. I don't remember why. Oh, we were just down there. That's when I drove across the country with you. And we
Yep.
ended up going down and we went to that restaurant with my mom. And the crab cakes were just abhorrent.
Yep.
They were just so bad. But why do you like crab cakes? We don't live anywhere near crabs.
Uh, I loved them growing up. I don't. I just anywhere I could get them, I would get them. And of course, there's not really good crab cakes here because there aren't any crabs for a good long distance. But like when we would vacation to the East Coast or Florida or whatever, I would get crab cakes for sure.
Yeah, and again, if you find the right one, they're so fucking delicious. Um,
Yep.
only second to lobster rolls. Lobster rolls are delightful. And to me, it's the fact that I don't have to pull my own crabs or lobster. It's already there for me.
Yeah.
But I want a peanut butter honey wrap right now. Creamed honey, Iraq. We're talking about creamed honey. Get with it.
It's very different.
It's very different. Um,
It's also probably not on Wikipedia.
I no, because I think I searched creamed honey once when we were doing mildly aggressive folk. Oh no,
There
it
it
is.
is.
It is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's got a little piece of it. It's a honey that's been processed to control crystallization, also known as honey fondant, into smooth, spreadable consistency and lighter color than liquid honey of the same floral type. A method of producing creamed honey was first patented in 1935. But yeah, you can totally spread it. And it's delicious. Oh, fondant is fun to say. Fondant. Fondant? Fondant. Fondant? Scuba suit? Um, I want to say that. Scuba suit? Scuba suit. So, we talked about a lot. We're going to go a few things into your dislikes, but let's talk about music. So, we talked about folk music. I'm just wondering. Yeah, it's on here.
Yeah, they're on there. Almost every band's on Wikipedia.
So Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, American folk rock band formed in Los Angeles in 2005. Let me see. It says years active to present.
Yeah, it's just they don't have Alexander anymore.
Oh, so Alexander went solo and they don't. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the type of stuff that they perform. There's a bunch of them just performing all across, and then Alexander is this guy who's dancing around and singing. Um, but it's love how they have like an upright piano instead of like a keyboard, and that's so them. Um, but yeah, they are incredibly old. Yeah, Mumford and Sons and Old Crow Medicine Show on Railroad Revival tour.
Yeah, Big Easy Express.
Mm-hmm. So tell me why you love Edward Sharp.
Um, well, I mean, honestly, when I first heard the song Home, the duet,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was like that is love. And that is a really good description of it. And so for me, it was like they were really good at putting emotion into words and emotion into music. And that really stood out to me.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm looking here and it's saying like these are the members, and then it goes into these are the additional touring members, and then these are former personnel, and then these are past touring additional personnel.
Yeah,
So, let me see here 2009 2000, so they have nothing past 2016, so up to zero, like up to um present might not be correct. This might be an old
it's possible.
um but yeah, the band's image sound evoked the hippie movement of the 1960s to 70s. So they really they really are a fantastic band. I love that you love them and you got me into them as well. Um what the other band that that we had talked about was Modest Mouse.
Yes.
So what's going on with them? Why do you like them?
Uh, they were just kind of there from the beginning of me being an adolescent. Um, they were they reminded me of the Pixies, but they had more fun with their music. It seemed like, and so I was really into them for a long, long, long time. From uh, basically, what album was it? The Moon in Antarctica,
Okay.
I believe, was the album. From that point on, was my love with them. Now I liked their older albums, but it wasn't.
Yeah, 2000, The Moon in Antarctica.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the album that got me into them.
Okay. So, yeah, that's really weird how the different people were there. Isaac Brock being the lead vocals the whole time.
Yep.
That's crazy. And Jeremiah Green doing drums and percussion the whole time, pretty much. Huh. Well, interesting. I know that they're coming to town and that I would love to go. So we'll look into
Where
that.
they? Which venue?
They are going in Azura Amphitheater
Okay.
from $38 on June 11th. Yeah, let's look into them.
All right. I'm not familiar with Azure Amphitheater, but
Neither am I. Maybe we can look it up on Wikipedia. Azura Amphitheater. It's on here. It's in Bonner Springs. Okay, I know exactly where it is. Open air amphitheater. So that's where I went to saw uh that's where I saw the backs Mumford and Sons.
okay.
They changed it. It used to be, yeah, Verizon Wireless Amphitheater. Used to be a whole bunch Cricket Wireless. I saw it during when it was Cricket Wireless, and now I guess it's called Azura. The more you know. So let's check that out. But anyway, Cat's Coffee, Peanuts, Peanut Butter, Rocks, Folk Music. Let's talk about your. We talked about your dislike for octopus, but what about your dislike for pork?
Um, just like octopus, it's a texture thing.
Okay.
Um, there's just something about certain cuts of pork that has a texture I don't enjoy at all. I mean, I love bacon. I like pork loin. I like uh,
Pulled pork.
pulled pork quite a bit. But if it anything else, pork steak, pork chop, no, I don't.
Yeah.
No,
I miss making pork chops, but I understand why. I don't want to gross you out when I do it either. Like, I'd rather have a meal for all of us than to just be like, hey, I'm going to make myself some pork chops. You can
yeah,
have a peanut butter wrap if you want one. Like,
I would.
yeah, I know you would. Um, and then I was curious. I mean, we have time. We had talked about when we first met, that I mentioned that I was bipolar, and that's how you and I started to talk.
Hmm.
I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it piqued my interest, and I made eye contact because I, at the time, had been diagnosed as bipolar as well. Um, and uh, it was something relatable. So that was the main reason I looked at you like that when you said it. Plus, you were pretty open about it, which has basically been the context of our whole relationship was the openness about things. Um, but yeah, it's not a fun disorder, as both of us are well aware.
Right. And when were
Um,
you diagnosed?
well, you can't legally diagnose someone as bipolar until they're over 18. Um, but I was basically told I was bipolar my whole life,
Right.
um, or that I had severe depression, and then it would be manic depression, but you're too young, and then it was you are bipolar.
Right. Right. Um. So, as far as what were your manic behaviors like?
Uh, Spending money was my big mania thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then, did you like not sleep a lot or?
yeah. I would talk a lot faster. I would sleep a lot less. I would require less sleep in general, which was kind of an upside to it,
Right.
if I'm being totally honest. Like I didn't need that sleep. Um, but it was it was difficult because of the spending thing.
Right.
I would get myself into trouble very quickly spending money.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I can understand that. Now, hi, Ruby.
She felt the need to chime in.
Ruby. Hi, baby. This is Ruby. She's our problem middle child. She she's on antihistamines because she likes to scratch off all her skin and lick off all her fur. Um, you could hear her purring through the microphone. That's so cute. She's adorable. Um, okay, and then as far as the depression, where does that lead you?
Just dark places. I tend to self isolate, which is probably not what you should do when
Mm-hmm.
you're depressed, but it's what I would do. Um, God,
she
this cat.
squawks. She squawks like a crow. Yeah, woo, self isolation. I know it's not easy. Um,
Yeah, and then I would isolate, and then I get stuck in loops, and then it would just spiral, and nobody needs that kind of spiral.
Ruby
Um,
also takes Apoquel, by the way. And yeah, we do 2 weeks, and it's $56 for 2 weeks. So,
And that's for the tiny little kitty pills.
right, right. Actually, it's for technically a month because she's taking half pills, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's about a month.
There's a whole bunch of ruby fur on the mic now.
Oh, of course there is. Um. Okay, so what has bipolar disorder done for you in a obviously negative way? I assume, but like, what has it?
I mean,
What are your challenges?
it has its upsides too. But my challenges, it's either, depending on the situation, it's either staying awake
Right.
or remaining calm. Um, one or the other. And
Yeah, let's talk about anxiety for a minute. So,
yeah, I definitely have issues with anxiety. I'm I'm hyper vigilant, so I'm taking in a lot of information, and it causes me to be uh, very, I don't know, on edge.
yeah. Yeah, team anxiety. I feel that. Um, so hypervigilance condition where the nervous system is inaccurately filtering sensory information and the individual is in an enhanced state of sensory sensitivity. So, that is something team hypervigilance exactly. There are times where I have to cover my ears because things are too loud or that there's ringing noises that I can't not hear. We were talking about small noises that was coming through his microphone that probably no one has heard up until this point, but I could not stop hearing.
Yeah.
So I'm just always on edge with everything, and you're the exact same way. You're always hearing or what's that or whatever, unless you're sleeping, and in which case you don't hear anything at all ever.
In which case, I am dead to the world.
Right, right. A bomb could go off, and you're like, oh, what? Okay. Unless Ruby comes in with a bag over her head and I
That
yell.
wakes us both
That
up.
wakes us both up. Ruby. It's so horrible, but we had a brown paper bag that had the loops, and she got herself stuck in one of the loops. And so she's running around the house with the bag catching wind, and you just hear flap, 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 flap.
So she thinks she's being chased by the bag.
Right. And so we tried to oh, the cat dry heaving? Well, Crystal, okay, wait, I'll tell two stories. So she runs, and I try to get her. She runs underneath the guest bedroom bed. I had to literally pull out the guest bedroom bed, hold her down, and get the piece out from underneath her arm and around her neck. And she made it very complicated to do so. The other thing is that Crystal's been having trouble with puking all the time. We had to take her to the animal hospital because there was a definite problem with her. And she wouldn't stop. And every single time I'd wake up, I'd go, Brayden, no. Because it would just be so bad because we just basically, I don't know, that sound of dry heaving wakes me up like that.
Yep. Yep. Having cats, it'll wake you up real quick.
Oh my God. So we have about like 6 minutes here. Let's talk about radicalism.
Okay. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Whether it's regardless of political affiliation, I feel like radicalism of any kind is dangerous. Um, that you have to moderate. You need moderates in there to keep things stable. And while I feel like radicals on either side of the aisle serve a purpose, I also feel like there need to be more moderates.
Right.
Because if you want to represent a large population, you go for the average. But I don't know. There's a lot of different types of radicalization, and different beliefs along with it and things of that nature. And I find it all to be far too black and white when the world is way more shades of gray than black and white. And,
Right.
uh, I think it's not productive. Um, I mean, I'll admit, like I said, it serves a purpose in setting the boundaries of what is okay and what is not okay. The problem is that it keeps crossing over into not okay.
Right.
Um, and I don't know. It, it's just not productive.
No, I completely agree, and I believe you said it well. Whereas if you have um, a large population, taking the middle is usually best to gather the information of that population.
Yeah.
And so leaning one way or the other, it doesn't matter which way you lean, just leaning hard one way or the other is not going to bring you to what a middle um, consensus
Yeah.
would bring. So I wanted to bring that up because I feel like it's something that's important, something that's kind of going on in the current events, and like I said, something that's important to know. Now, equally, and I don't want to end on this, so we'll come back on a lighter note. We'll talk about organized religion. Because I like ending on things that are different. So that way people who like snooze, most of it wake up to the end of the stream and are like, "Oh my god, we're talking about organized religion." And you're like, "Yep, surprise." So, what about this really grinds your gears?
So I grew up uh, in the Unitarian Universalist Church, which uh, first church to have gay marriages in it. They're really accepting. You don't have to believe anything in particular. You don't even have to believe in one God to be a part of it. It's just kind of like more of a group of people who want to celebrate their spirituality together rather than apart. Um, but there's such a diversity of ideas that you're not taught any one way. Um, and I really liked that. Sunday school took us to all the major, uh, temples and shrines and things like that in the city to teach us about the other religions because it was about finding your God, your flavor of God, or
Right.
um, I feel like to me that as an organized religion was okay, but I feel like by and large it's used as a tool to manipulate people a little too much. Um, and that's what really grinds my gears about it is that you have these people who are genuinely believing in hope and salvation, and then there are people using that to steer them into bad things.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously there's I grew up Catholic, and my mom wouldn't let me not be Catholic. This isn't anything towards her. She wouldn't let me not be Catholic until I made my confirmation, because that way, if whatever I decided after that, at least I'd be baptized and communionized and confirmized. I don't know the words for it, but at least I'd have
Confirmed.
confirmed, right, up till that point. So that way, if I decided that I wanted to get married in a Catholic church or whatever, I would have that background. So I understand, because that's up until eighth grade. And then at that point, you can start having your own beliefs. But that concept of like being told you're wrong for believing certain things, and I think the church you grew up in is a large part of church, if you will, is a large part of why you are you and such a unique individual with such awesome beliefs. And I'm proud of you for who you become, and I love you very much.
Oh, thank you. I love you too.
Um, and we're coming near the end of this here. Is there anything that you'd like to discuss or bring up or say?
Oh, I mean, we covered a lot of ground.
Shut up,
Uh,
E-Rock. We're in two separate rooms. We can't get a room. We're in two separate rooms.
Um, no, I mean, I could go on about the history stuff forever, but
What's the
um,
lyric of "Oh Jesus, I love you" and "I love Buddha" to Ramakrishna
Guruday,
Muhammad Guade something something Muhammad? What is it?
ba- Balagi,
Hmm.
and Muhammad.
Right. So the reason I'm bringing up that song is because I think that that's also with the Unitarian Church, where they're basically like, love all of them, love all religions as, or all gods and religions as equals. Is that correct?
It's not necessarily love them all as equals, but understand that we're all humans, so nobody's got it right.
Right.
Um, and so, in accepting that nobody's got it right, you find your own beliefs, um, and they're right for you. And that's all that matters.
Right.
That's the whole thing about it.
See also BS, and now that Snark is out of the way, I'm going to bed. What does he mean, see also BS?
For religion.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Did we
Oh,
talk?
we didn't talk synesthesia,
Let's
which
do it.
is that's interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy that you bring that up. Anesthesia.
And that's pretty much what letters and numbers look like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not the same colors, but
So basically, it's a perceptual phenomenon in which stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to an involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. People who report a lifelong history of such experiences are known as synesthetes. Awareness of synesthetic perceptions varies from person to person. One common form of synesthesia, known as grapheme color synesthesia, letters or numbers are perceived and inherently colored. So is that what you said, that there are different colors to different numbers?
yes, and different colors to different letters.
So you remember certain like passcodes by color.
Yes, that's correct.
So if I say our pin number, no, I'm kidding. Um, if you were to say like I don't know, 579, what are those three colors?
Yellow, green, red. Though the red's more of a fuchsia.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that that's super fascinating. And that what's chromesthesia? A form under sounds with colors.
Which I have as well.
Do you have favorite words or numbers because of the color scheme?
I do. 22 is my favorite number because it is yellow. Both of them are yellow. Um, don't know why that was my choice, but I just liked it because they're both yellow. I also like 13 because the one is black and the three is red, so it looks kind of cool. Um, but yeah, I do have favorite numbers because of the colors.
That's fascinating.
I have favorite sounds because of chromesthesia as well. But
What are your favorite sounds?
um, a cat purring is really nice. Uh, their music in general, just you can appreciate almost any music
Except for
except
pop music, right?
yeah, well, I could probably learn to appreciate it, but I don't have the patience.
That's fair.
Um, but yeah, I, if someone asked me or forced me into a situation where I had to either be blind or deaf, I would rather be blind than deaf
Yeah.
because at least I could still see the colors.
Aw.
Um, that's my, and they are kind of like fireworks shapes appearing outside of the visual field. It's bizarre to describe. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think I my personal opinion is that it is something that is it's a mechanism that is in every human's brain, but there's a layer. It helps us organize information, but there's a layer that takes that away in most people, and it's gone in people with synesthesia. The filter that takes that labeling system away, because when I say a high-pitched color is bright, or a high-pitched sound is a bright color, people are like, oh yeah, well, why are they, why why does that make sense?
Right.
um, and low pitch sounds are darker colors, and it just that people are like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But there's got to be a reason for that, and I think it helps everybody sort notes, sort uh, numbers, sort letters, all of it. um, but they don't see the filter, or they don't see the labeling system, they just see the end result. So I actually think, rather than synesthesia and chromesthesia being something extra, I think it's actually something that we lack, a filtering system we lack.
Hmm.
Um, that's just based on having it. I don't know.
Right. The actual science.
Yeah,
That's
no one really knows the actual science.
right. Well, that's crazy. And I'm glad you brought that up, Erock, because that's phenomenal. And I want to thank you, Galvos, for coming on in such
Of
short
course.
notice. I love that it was your idea. So I appreciate you so much more for that. Um, and again, I'm so proud of you and who you've become, and who you
Thank
are
you, Ira.
now in our relationship. And never heard it explained like that, but I can relate to most of it. Absolutely. So I am going to see who is on. And if no one is really on, there we go. We've got a crap ton of people on. Hold on a second. We're going to bring you over to. Let's go with Alchemutation. Let's see how long he's been on for. He's on a Be Right Back screen. So let's go there. Alrighty. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week we will have, I believe, Captain Erock. I don't know if you know that guy. He's pretty chill. Yeah, it'll be Captain Erock. He's a pretty chill guy. He should have talked more about his magic. I completely agree, Infozar. I think that he should have talked more about his magic. I love the sipping tea emote. That's epic. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Goodbye. And